The Galactic Confederation vessel emerged from hyperspace with a shimmer of blue light, its crystalline hull catching the rays of Earth's sun. Inside the command center, Tamin Park adjusted his uniform and took a deep breath. After decades of scanning the stars, humanity had finally made contact with alien life, a vast coalition of spacefaring species known as the Galactic Confederation. "We're being hailed," said Lieutenant Minji beside him. "The Confederation representatives request permission to board." "Granted," Tamin said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. This moment would define humanity's future among the stars. When the alien delegation stepped through the airlock, Tamin was struck by their diversity. The lead diplomat was tall with smooth blue skin and 4 arms. Behind her stood beings of various shapes and sizes, some with scales, others with feathers, one that seemed to float rather than walk. "I am Counselor Tamin Park of Earth," he said, bowing slightly. "We welcome you in peace." The blue-skinned diplomat nodded. "I am Speaker Ilix. We represent the Galactic Confederation, an alliance of 322 spacefaring species." The meeting moved to the station's conference room, where Tamin noted the aliens' cautious glances. They kept a careful distance, as if afraid humans might attack without warning. "We have observed your transmissions for some time," Ilix said. "Your planet's history is concerning." Tamin nodded. "We've had our struggles, but we've grown as a species." Another alien, bird-like with iridescent feathers, stepped forward. "You've had 17 global conflicts in your recorded history. The last one ended with atomic weapons. And since then, we've worked to maintain peace," Tamin countered. The aliens exchanged glances. "You still maintain military forces," said Ilix. "Most Confederation species abandoned organized violence thousands of years ago." The conversation continued for hours. The aliens probed into human history, focusing on wars, conflicts, and martial developments. They seemed fascinated and disturbed by humanity's capacity for violence. "Your entertainment contains frequent depictions of combat," observed a small green alien with large eyes. "Your children play games simulating warfare." Tamin tried to explain the difference between fiction and reality, but the aliens seemed unconvinced. 3 days later, the formal invitation came. The Confederation would accept humans as provisional members, with restrictions. Human ships would be limited in size and armament. Earth would have a voice in the Confederation Council but no vote for 50 standard years. "These terms are unusual," Tamin noted during private discussions with Admiral Juno. "They fear us," the Admiral replied. "Did you see how they reacted when I mentioned our defensive capabilities? They called us bloodthirsty when they thought their translators were off." "We should accept anyway," Tamin said. "We need allies in space, and we can prove ourselves over time." The agreement was signed, and preparations began for Earth's integration into the wider galactic community. Tamin was appointed as the first human ambassador to the Confederation. His first council meeting was revealing. When Tamin entered the Grand Chamber, conversations stopped. Representatives moved aside, creating a bubble of empty space around him. Ambassador Park greeted Ilix, now revealed as a mid-ranking official. "Please state Earth's position on the trade routes discussion." Tamin presented Earth's case for inclusion in a minor shipping lane. His reasoned arguments were met with silent stares. "Your species wishes access to these systems for what purpose?" asked a gelatinous being from the senior council. "Commerce. Cultural exchange. The same reasons any member would want," Tamin replied. "Yet your ships still carry defensive weapons," noted another counselor. "As permitted under our agreement," Tamin said calmly. The request was denied. So was the next, and the one after that. Earth was kept at arm's length, tolerated but not trusted. 6 months into his posting, Tamin found an unexpected ally. Counselor Bryn, a small furry being, approached him after a particularly frustrating session. "They won't change quickly," Bryn said softly. "Most Confederation species evolved from prey animals. Their civilizations developed through cooperation, not competition. The concept of fighting is alien to them." "And humans?" Tamin asked. "Your mixed evolutionary history makes you unique here. You understand both cooperation and conflict. Some fear that makes you dangerous. I believe it makes you valuable. Tameen smiled. If only others shared your view. They might, someday, Bryn said. Especially if they ever face something that diplomacy cannot solve. Neither knew how prophetic those words would prove to be. 3 years passed since Earth joined the Galactic Confederation. Humans remained second-class citizens among the stars, but they had carved out a small place for themselves. Trade ships traveled between Earth and nearby systems, and a few hundred humans now worked on Confederation stations and outposts. Captain Jaiwo Kim stood on the bridge of the HSS Sentinel, a human patrol vessel assigned to the outer territories. The ship was smaller than Jaiwo would have liked. The Confederation strictly limited human military capabilities, but her crew was well trained. Captain, called her sensor officer, Han. I'm picking up strange readings from the Proxima colony relay. Jaiwo frowned. What kind of readings? Distress signals, then nothing. Total communication blackout. Proxima colony was home to nearly 3 billion beings, mostly Thelans and Vosks, peaceful species who specialized in agriculture and art. The colony had no meaningful defenses. Set course for Proxima, Jaiwo ordered. Maximum speed. The Sentinel dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Proxima, and the bridge fell silent. Where a vibrant colony should have been, there was devastation. Orbital platforms had been ripped apart. The planet's surface showed massive burn patterns visible even from space. Life signs? Jaiwo asked, her voice tight. Hyun shook his head. None, Captain. What could do this? Whispered the communications officer. Before anyone could answer, the sensors blared a warning. 3 unknown vessels appeared at the edge of the system, massive, irregular shapes that seemed part biological and part mechanical. Evasive maneuvers. Jaiwo shouted as the lead ship fired. The Sentinel barely escaped, jumping to safety with critical data about the attackers. 3 days later, Jaiwo stood before the Confederation Emergency Council on the capital world, trying to make them understand the threat. The colony is gone, she reported. All of it. 3 billion lives wiped out. The council chamber erupted in panicked voices. The Confederation species had no frame of reference for such destruction. Their history had no world wars, no genocides. What manner of beings would do this? Asked Supreme Counselor Marin. We managed to intercept some communications, Jaiwo said. They call themselves the Hive. They appear to share a collective consciousness and consider all other life forms as either resources to be harvested or threats to be eliminated. Surely we can communicate with them, suggested a Thelian representative. Establish peaceful contact. Jaiwo took a deep breath. With respect, Counselor, they don't appear interested in communication. When we tried to hail them, they immediately attacked. The debate continued for hours. The council formed committees to study diplomatic approaches. They discussed sending envoys of peace. No one spoke of defense or military response. 2 weeks later, another colony fell. Then another. We need to prepare for war, said General Do-Hyun Lee during an emergency meeting of Earth's Defense Council. The Confederation won't act, but we must. The Confederation forbids us from building significant military forces, Tameen Park, now Earth's senior ambassador, reminded them. If we break those rules, we could lose our membership. If we don't break those rules, we might lose our lives, Do-Hyun countered. The room fell silent as a new transmission appeared on the main screen. It was Security Minister Bryn, Tameen's ally on the council. Ambassador Park, Bryn said, his fur disheveled with stress. The Hive has destroyed the Vega colony. 17 billion dead. The council still debates while our people die. What can we do? Tameen asked. I've been studying your species' history, Bryn said. Humans understand something the rest of us don't, that sometimes violence must be met with violence. The council would never approve human military action, Tameen said. Not officially, Bryn agreed. But several of us in leadership positions are willing to look the other way if Earth mobilizes its forces. After the call ended, Taming turned to Dohayan. How quickly can we prepare? Not quickly enough, the general answered honestly. But we'll do what we can. Across human space, the call went out. Civilian ships were retrofitted with weapons. Retired military personnel returned to service. Earth's limited defensive fleet was reorganized for offensive operations. When the Hive attack fleet approached the Rigel system, they found something unexpected waiting for them: a small but determined human battle group led by Captain Jaiwo Kim. All ships, battle formation, Jaiwo ordered as the massive Hive vessels appeared. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth today. We're fighting for every species in the Confederation, even the ones who fear us. The human ships moved forward, hopelessly outnumbered but refusing to yield. The Hive had never encountered resistance before. For the first time, the predators faced something they didn't understand: a species willing to fight. The battle for the future of the galaxy had begun. The battle at Rigel had been short and brutal. Only 3 human ships escaped, but they had accomplished something remarkable: they had destroyed a Hive vessel. It was the first known victory against the invaders. While the cost had been high, the engagement had provided crucial information about Hive weaknesses. Commander Dohayan Lee stood before the holographic map in Earth's Emergency Command Center, surrounded by military leaders from across human space. The display showed the advancing Hive fleets in red, the remaining Confederation worlds in blue. Captain Kim's battle data is invaluable, Dohayan said. The Hive ships are strong but slow to change direction. They rely on overwhelming force rather than tactical flexibility. That still leaves us outgunned, said Admiral Minji. Even if we mobilize every ship, we have maybe 200 combat-capable vessels. Intelligence suggests the Hive has thousands. Then we need to be smarter, Dohayan replied. Humans have always excelled at asymmetric warfare. The planning continued through the night. On the 3rd day, an unexpected visitor arrived. Counselor Bryn entered the command center escorted by Earth security personnel. The small, furry alien looked out of place among the uniformed humans. The Confederation Council has officially condemned Earth's unauthorized military action at Rigel, Bryn said without preamble. Unofficially, I'm here to help. Dohayan raised an eyebrow. How can you help? Several Confederation species are starting to question our pacifist stance. I've brought technical specifications for our civilian ships. They could be converted to military use with the right modifications. The Council would never approve that, Dohayan said. Bryn's whiskers twitched. The Council doesn't need to know. Within weeks, Earth shipyards were working around the clock. The human fleet grew as civilian vessels were retrofitted with weapons systems. But it wasn't enough. We need trained personnel, Dohayan told Bryn during a strategy session. Ships are useless without crews who know how to fight. Most Confederation citizens have never even held a weapon, Bryn admitted. Violence is foreign to them. Then we need to teach them, said Jaiwo Kim, who had been promoted after Rigel despite her ship being destroyed. Some will be willing to learn. Bryn hesitated. Learning to fight goes against everything they believe. Ask them what they believe in more, Jaiwo replied. Their principles or their survival? Training centers were established on remote human outposts. At first, only a few dozen Confederation citizens volunteered. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Most came from worlds directly threatened by the Hive. In one such center, Jaiwo watched as a group of felons, tall, peaceful beings with 4 arms and gentle dispositions, struggled with basic targeting exercises. I cannot do this, said one named Leth, setting down the training weapon. My people have not harmed another being in 10,000 years. The Hive destroyed your colony at Proxima, Jaiwo reminded him. 3 billion of your people died. Violence will only bring more violence, Leth insisted. Jaiwo considered her next words carefully. When the Hive reaches your homeworld, what will you do? Make peace? They don't want peace. They want resources, including your people. Leth's large eyes blinked rapidly. Then we die with our principles intact. Or, Jaiwo said softly, you learn to fight so that others don't have to die. Sometimes the most peaceful choice is to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. Slowly, Leth picked up the weapon again. As the training progressed, something unexpected happened. The Confederation volunteers began to form bonds with their human instructors. Species that had feared humans now saw their bloodthirsty nature in a new light. You don't enjoy violence, observed a Voskian engineer after watching Jaiwu during combat drills. You're efficient at it, but I see how it weighs on you. No sane person enjoys killing, Jaiwu replied. We fight because sometimes there's no better option. Meanwhile, Dohayan and his strategists developed a plan that played to human strengths. They couldn't match the Hive in direct combat, but they could use hit-and-run tactics, drawing the enemy into traps and ambushes. The first test came at the Tau Ceti system. A small human fleet led by Captain Juno lured a Hive patrol into a dense asteroid field. The bulky Hive vessels couldn't maneuver effectively in the tight space. Human ships, smaller and more agile, picked them off one by one. News of the victory spread quickly. More Confederation citizens volunteered for training. Some council members secretly provided resources. Dohayan looked at the latest intelligence reports with grim satisfaction. We've bloodied their nose, but the real fight is coming. The Hive main fleet is heading for the Arcturus junction. If Arcturus falls, they'll have a direct path to the Confederation core worlds, Jaiwo said. Then we make our stand there, Dohayan decided. Every ship, every fighter. Human and Confederation alike. As the call went out, ships gathered at Arcturus, a ragtag fleet of converted civilian vessels, outdated military craft, and newly built warships. At their heart was the flagship HSS Defiant, commanded by Jaiwo Kim and staffed by the first truly mixed human Confederation crew. They were few against many, but they would not yield. The reluctant warriors prepared for the battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The Arcturus Junction was a strategic crossroads where 7 major hyperspace lanes converged. Control this system, and you controlled access to the heart of Confederation space. The combined fleet waited in defensive positions, a patchwork armada of 412 vessels gathered from across human territories and friendly Confederation worlds. On the bridge of the HSS Defiant, Captain Jaiwo Kim studied the tactical display. Her ship had been hastily upgraded with Confederation technology, making it the most advanced vessel in the human fleet. The crew was a mixture of experienced human officers and Confederation volunteers who had embraced the warrior path. Hive fleet detected, announced Sunhee, her sensor officer. Multiple signatures emerging from hyperspace. Jaiwo watched as the display filled with red markers. Not dozens of enemy ships. Not hundreds. Thousands. By the stars, whispered Leth, the felon tactical officer who had once refused to touch a weapon. There are so many. Jaiwo kept her face calm though her heart raced. Numbers aren't everything. Remember the plan. The human strategy was born of necessity. They couldn't match the Hive in direct combat, so they had divided their forces into 3 groups. The main battle group would hold the center while 2 smaller, faster groups would harass the Hive flanks, drawing fire and creating openings. All ships, battle positions, Jaiwu ordered. Fighter squadrons launch when ready. Small fighters streamed from carrier ships, nimble craft piloted by the best human pilots and a few Confederation species with quick reflexes. Among them was Gold Squadron, led by Commander Sunhee Kong. Gold Squadron, form up, Sunhee called over the calm. Remember your training. These Hive ships are big but slow to track small targets. The first wave of Hive vessels entered weapons range, and the battle began. The massive biomechanical ships fired devastating energy beams that could cut through a cruiser's shields with a single hit. But they struggled to target the small, fast-moving human fighters that darted between them. Sunhee led her squadron through a gap in the Hive formation, launching missiles at the vulnerable engine sections they had identified in previous engagements. 3 enemy ships erupted in flames, but the victory was short-lived. A second wave of Hive vessels emerged from hyperspace, then a third. There's no end to them, someone said over the comm. Back on the Defiant, Jaiwu made a difficult decision. All ships, execute Pattern Omega. I repeat, Pattern Omega. Pattern Omega was a last resort strategy. The fleet would split into smaller groups, sacrificing some ships to create a corridor through which others could attack the Hive command vessels. Captain, said her communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from the Confederation capital. The Council is evacuating. Jaiwo's jaw tightened. They were being abandoned. Acknowledge receipt. Tell them we'll buy them as much time as possible. The battle raged for hours. Human and allied ships fought with desperate courage, using every trick and tactic they had developed. For every defender that fell, they took multiple Hive vessels with them, but it wasn't enough. The defensive line began to buckle. On the Defiance bridge, warning lights flashed as a Hive energy beam struck the ship's portside. Shields at 30%, reported the engineering officer. We can't take another hit like that. Jaiwo studied the tactical display. The Hive command carrier had moved into position at the center of their formation, coordinating the attack. If they could destroy it, it might throw the Hive into disarray. Plot a course directly for the Hive command carrier, she ordered. Captain? Leth looked at her in confusion. Our weapons can't penetrate their defenses at this range. We're not going to shoot them, Jaiwo said calmly. All non-essential personnel to escape pods. Prepare for ramming speed. Silence fell over the bridge. Then Leth straightened to his full height. I will stay, Captain. One by one, the bridge crew voiced the same decision. None would abandon their posts. Commander Sunhee, Jaiwo called over the Calm Gold Squadron needs to clear us a path. Understood, Captain, came the reply, though Sunhee's voice cracked with emotion. She knew what Jaiwo planned. The fighters of Gold Squadron formed a wedge ahead of the Defiant, drawing fire and clearing a path straight toward the heart of the Hive fleet. The Defiant accelerated, taking hit after hit but staying on course. Engineering, Jaiwo called. Overload the main reactor. Time it to detonate on impact. The massive Hive command carrier loomed ahead, its surface bristling with weapons that pounded the Defiant's failing shields. It has been an honor, Jaiwo said to her crew. The Defiant slammed into the Hive vessel at full speed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a blinding flash erupted as the ship's reactor went critical. The explosion tore through the command carrier, splitting it in two and setting off a chain reaction through nearby Hive ships. Throughout the system, human and Confederation crews watched in awe as a third of the Hive fleet was consumed in the blast. In the confusion, Sunhee Khan led the remaining fighters in a desperate attack on the disorganized enemy. For Captain Kim, she called as her squadron dived toward the vulnerable Hive vessels. For all of us. The tide of battle had turned. The bloodthirsty humans had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to fight not out of love for violence, but out of love for those they protected. The memorial garden on the rebuilt Confederation capital world was quiet in the early morning hours. Tamine Park walked slowly among the monuments, pausing before the central obelisk. Etched into its crystalline surface were thousands of names, ships and crews lost during what was now called the Hive War. His fingers traced over the name HSS Defiant. Captain Jaiwo Kim's sacrifice had changed everything. The destruction of the Hive command carrier had thrown their fleet into disarray, allowing the remaining defenders to push back. In the confusion, the Hive retreated, their collective mind temporarily fractured. I thought I might find you here, said a familiar voice. Tamine turned to see Counselor Bryn approaching. The small alien looked tired but carried himself with new confidence. The council session begins soon, Bryn said. Your presence is requested. Of course, Tamine replied. I was just paying my respects. They walked together toward the Grand Council chamber, passing teams of human and Confederation engineers working on reconstruction projects. The capital had been damaged in a last desperate Hive attack before their final retreat. 5 years ago, my people feared humans, Bryn said thoughtfully. We called you bloodthirsty because you understood violence in ways we could not imagine. And now? Tamine asked. Now we understand that knowing how to fight does not mean loving violence. Sometimes it means being willing to stand between danger and those who cannot protect themselves. The council chamber was filled when they arrived. Representatives from across the Confederation had gathered for this historic session. At the center stood Supreme Counselor Marin, one of the few senior leaders who had supported the human military effort from the beginning. "This council is called to order," Marin announced. "Our first matter is the recognition of Earth's status within the Confederation." Tamine took his place at the speaker's podium. For years, humans had been second-class members, restricted and mistrusted. Today would change that. "Ambassador Park," Marin said, 3 years ago, when the Hive threatened to destroy us all, humanity stood when others could not. Today, we acknowledge that debt." A formal declaration was read, removing all restrictions on human activities within Confederation space. Earth was granted full membership status and 3 seats on the High Council. Furthermore, Marin continued, "We propose the formation of a new Confederation Defense Force, with joint leadership from human military advisors and Confederation representatives." The vote was unanimous. Species that had once feared human aggression now recognized the value of their protective instincts. After the session, Tamine found himself in a garden overlooking the capital city with Commander Sun Hikong, one of the heroes of Arcturus and now the highest-ranking survivor of the battle. "How does it feel?" he asked her. "Being appointed as the first human defense force commander?" Sun He watched a group of Thelan children playing with human children in the distance. "Strange. 5 years ago, I was just a fighter pilot. Now I'm supposed to build a military for species that spent millennia avoiding violence." "You're not just building a military," Tamine said. "You're teaching them how to protect themselves. There's a difference." Jaiwo understood that difference, Sun He said softly. "She never wanted to be a warrior. She just couldn't stand by when others were in danger." Across the Confederation, change was happening. Species that had once shunned humans now sought their guidance. Mixed crews became common on ships. Cultural exchange flourished. The label Bloodthirsty remained, but its meaning had transformed from an insult to a grudging term of respect. On a distant frontier world, a human medical team worked alongside Confederation scientists, treating survivors from a planet the Hive had partially harvested before the war's end. Dr. Miho knelt beside a young Voskian child with a badly damaged limb. "This won't hurt," he promised as he applied regenerative therapy to the injury. "You're very brave." "Like the humans who saved us?" the child asked. Miho smiled. "Bravery comes in many forms. Sometimes it's fighting. Sometimes it's healing." Nearby, a Hive prisoner watched with confusion. Captured during the final battles, this drone had been separated from the collective mind and was slowly developing individual consciousness. "I do not understand," it said to its Thelan guard. "Your kind were defeated. The humans destroyed our ships. Why do they now heal our victims instead of destroying them too?" Leth, once Jaiwo's reluctant tactical officer and now an instructor at the new Defense Academy, considered the question. "Because that is the true strength of humans," he explained. "Not their capacity for violence, but their ability to choose when to fight and when to show mercy. They taught us that protecting life sometimes requires taking a stand against those who would destroy it." In orbit above the planet, a new class of Confederation vessel conducted patrol operations. Its name was proudly displayed on the hull, HSS Jaiwo Kim. Its crew was diverse humans working alongside a dozen Confederation species. They were no longer reluctant warriors but committed protectors. The bloodthirsty humans had come to the rescue. And in doing so, they had taught the peaceful Confederation that true peace is not the absence of conflict, but the courage to stand against those who would destroy it.